Okay, so usually I leave my own team review for last, usually because I like to see the lay of the land. I mostly just assume most people aren't that interested in my own team. They're usually just interested in their own team. But I figure I'll do it now, since we're 3 days out before the season, and I'll speak more about why I'm doing mine a little early at the end of the video. Um, I think the other thing I'll talk about is like, since it's my own team, I can talk about my own perspective and kind of give a almost like a view into the back door into what it is that I do for the draft and how I do it. And that'll give you at least a better idea of like maybe how to prepare or get better at it, what have you. Um, yeah, because I just enjoy it. And so, if you're going to watch any of these videos, this should probably be the video that you watch. If no other reason, because you'll get the most out of it. Um, you'll see what it is that I do and why I do it. So yeah, starting things off, number 7 nomination, $68, Ashton Genty. A little background, I've talked a lot about him, but number 6 overall pick in this past year's draft. Draft out of Boise State, led them to the college football playoff. He led the college football in yards after contact and broken tackle rate. I knew he'd be a first-round pick going all the way back to the beginning of last year. My top 5 fantasy running backs going into the season were Bijan Robinson, number 1, Saquon Barkley, number 2, Ashton Genty, number 3. I had Jahmyr Gibbs, number 4, Derrick Henry, number 5, and McCaffrey, number 6, and then kind of goes from there. Obviously, McCaffrey went for 49, so my issue with him was the injury concerns. Everybody else that I named between Gibbs and Henry and Saquon and Bijan all went for more than Genty. I get that he's a rookie. I get that probably scared people off. So the way I kind of looked at it was like, if I could get him under 70, then he's going to be on my team. I don't give a crap about any of the other guys. And that's how it worked out, because basically going in the draft, I don't really want to spend over, we'll say, like 130 on my top 2 players. Or I want some kind of, you need star talent. You need at least 2 star players on your team to get anywhere. That's what I've learned in this league. And I want to build around a running back. I don't want to build around a star wide receiver, mostly because just historically speaking, it's a lot easier. You have a lot higher chance of being successful. And building around the wide receivers, even though their injury rate is less, their reliance on quarterbacks is higher. Case in point, Tyreek Hill last year with Tua. So even if you want to say it's just like, oh, I want to take Justin Jefferson, and he's been great every year with like Sam Darnold, and he's been great every year with Kirk Cousins. I'm like, that is nice, but that doesn't mean that J.J. McCarthy is in the same realm as them, even if I don't really believe in Sam Darnold. It's just kind of like, I don't like relying on other players. I like running backs. I like that consistency. What does that have to do with Genty? So I think I talked about it deep in like our group chat, but basically since 2000, my top 5 running back prospects are: number 1's LaDainian Tomlinson. No, number 1 is Adrian Peterson. Number 2 is LaDainian Tomlinson. Number 3 is Ashton Genty. Number 4, I believe, is Bijan Robinson, and number 5 is Saquon Barkley. So I have Genty as like a historical like running back prospect, like historically like super, like, Hall of Famers. Like, we don't know if Barkley's going to go to the Hall of Fame. I think he will go to the Hall of Fame. Bijan, it's very early. Obviously, things can happen. But Hall of Fame talents. And then, obviously, Adrian Peterson, LaDainian Tomlinson in the Hall of Fame. So, when I watch Genty play, he reminds me so much of LaDainian Tomlinson. The speed, the power, the acceleration, the vision, doing everything well. In and out of breaks, reading coverages. He does everything well. Everything well. And while people are scared, people have told me, the Raiders aren't very good. Pete Carroll's a defensive coach. Geno Smith's not that great of a quarterback. They have no wide receiving core. The offensive line's okay. All those things, I hear you. And here would be my pushback. So Pete Carroll has been coaching for a while, a long time, since we can go back to the Patriots in the 90s before Belichick was there. But the key to Pete Carroll is he had Marshawn Lynch. Then he had Thomas Rawls. Then he had Chris Carson. Then he had Kenneth Walker. And he has been looking for his Marshawn Lynch basically since Marshawn left in 2015. Basically, he played 2 more years with the Raiders, funny enough, while Carroll was still in Seattle after retiring for a year. But he has been searching for his Marshawn Lynch, and I think Genty is his Marshawn Lynch. He's just such a special player, and I think they're going to run him into the ground. The offense will revolve around him. Everything will run through him. He is the accelerant on the bonfire, so to speak. So I'm going big. I'm going 1,400 yards rushing. I'm going 63 receptions. I'm going 500 yards receiving. I'm going probably like 12 touchdowns. Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's a 1,900-yard season, by the way, if you do the math. I just think that you don't take someone that high if you're not certain of what they are, especially at running back. Especially because, again, running backs, they reach their peak at 25. He's 21, so usually their peak is on their first contract. They often don't do very well on their second contract, and even if they do, it's early. Like, look at McCaffrey right now with double Achilles tendonitis. So the Raiders are building quickly to win. I don't think they're championship level pedigree right now. They do not have the depth on defense. That defense is not that great. I think they'll win like 9 games, but the defense not being great actually plays into my hands because I think that gives more opportunity to Genty. I think they'll be in some shootouts. I think Geno Smith is an incredibly underrated, accurate quarterback. And I think the receiving corps is not that great. It's bottom 3 in the league. I even like Jacoby Myers. We'll talk about that more. But the point is, Genty was someone that I had my eye on. I've been looking at him for over a year. And coming into this draft, I'm just like, I'm going to get somebody in that top 5. I don't know who it's going to be. And lo and behold, to my surprise, it is someone that I wanted, is Ashton Genty. So, also, it helps that, like, the prices on Saquon and Bijan were hyper-inflated. If you want to spend over $80 on a player, like, you are welcome to do that. That just simply means that you're using 4/10 of your entire, basically, budget on one player, and you need everything to break perfectly for that to work out for you. Now, granted, Patrick didn't win a title spending $80 on Bijan. So I'm kind of like, that's kind of like the limit. If you go over that, then I don't really know if you're going to be able to build a team well. He was able to build a team, but it seemed very difficult. And when I saw Jerome and Charlie go do that with Saquon and Bijan, I'm just like, they're going to have a hard time building a team. And I was right. So this is my forewarning. If you want to go past 80 on any player, I don't care who it is, I wish you luck, because that's hard. And you have to have a lot of patience, and most teams don't. So, yeah, just a heads up. 27th overall nomination, $22, Jaden Daniels. So I will admit, I am a little salty about this. Not in the sense that anything Jaden Daniels did. I really like Jaden Daniels. Going into the draft, the way I kind of saw it was, I either want to be first in at quarterback or I want to be last. And what I mean is, there's 14 teams in our league. I'm usually very comfortable with how I select quarterbacks. I feel I'm very good at it. I see Lamar Jackson's breakout. I see Josh Allen's breakout. I pick up Justin Fields, and he's off and running with the Bears. I see Jaden Daniels breakout. I called Bo Nix last year. Like, I feel very comfortable just picking quarterbacks. But going into this draft, I looked at all the cheap quarterbacks, and I'm just like, they're all relatively the same. Baker Mayfield is like Justin Fields, is like CJ Stroud, is like Jordan Love, is like Brock Purdy. And I'm just like, okay. So this was going to go one of 2 ways. Either I was going to be last, or I was going to get one of the top 5 quarterbacks, which in this case would be Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, or Lamar Jackson. So by this point in time, I think at the 27th pick, I've already seen I think Leyland has already pushed Josh Allen, Burrow, and Hurts. Yeah, so Hurts went like 19, and Allen had to have gone before that because she was pushing him too. And then I know Olivia like went in on him. So yeah, Olivia went in on Allen for like 40. So by this point, I've noticed that Leyland is pushing quarterbacks. I know that Josh Allen's gone. I know that Jalen Hurts is gone. I know that Joe Burrow's gone. The only two elite guys are Lamar Jackson, who I really like, and Jay Daniels, who I had last year. So I was thinking in my head, it's like, okay, I've seen all the running backs, the elite running backs go. I got one. How do I want to build this team? Usually I don't go high on quarterback. Usually I feel like paying 22 on any quarterback is like cost. I was comfortable kind of going for it just because like I had Jaden last year. I think he has potential for more. He probably had the greatest rookie season of a quarterback ever, if we're being completely honest with you. He was like, I want to say, no lower than third in carries, rush yards, rushing touchdowns, rushes inside the 5, and scrambles. And his 355 fantasy points on the season trailed only Cam Newton's rookie year ever. He delivered over 24 points in a fantasy game half the time, so 8 games last year. And I think he has a better supporting cast this year with Deebo Samuel and, more importantly, Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. So, from my perspective, having seen the other three, I think Josh Allen was last year's MVP. I've seen Jalen Hurts win a Super Bowl MVP. I've seen Joe Burrow take a team to a Super Bowl that I don't believe belong there because they're not as talented as some of the other teams. I think Lamar Jackson's won multiple MVPs. In my estimation at the time, I was just like, I want to get either Lamar or Jaden, and I want to get him under 25 because I want an elite quarterback because I don't want to worry about it and have to play this game where we're waiting till the end and we get sniped because someone decides to spend like $10 on somebody that we wanted, which ended up like Bo Nix went for 14. And I'm just like, yep, a bunch of people are waiting for that. I don't want to deal with that. So just for peace of mind and for the talent, I'm like, I'll just pay at cost. So I chose Daniels. I think he'll throw for 4,000 yards. He only threw for 3,500 last year. I think he'll get around the same number of touchdowns. So he had 25. He'll probably get around like high 20s, 27, 28. I think he'll get some more rushing touchdowns. So like 8 or 9. And I think kind of like Lamar, he'll probably run for like 800 yards or so. And that's what makes him like such a special player. I think he'll have an even better season than he just had. And I'm really excited to see him. I'm really glad that he's on my team. And yeah, that was kind of just like, I'm kind of annoyed because later, the only one that was left among the elite was Lamar Jackson. And I was just like, man, Lamar's got to be going for more. I should just get Jane Daniels at 22. Lamar Jackson went for 19. I'm just like, come on, man. For real? If I had to choose, I would take Lamar over Jaden. That sounds mean, but I've never had Lamar. Like, I haven't had Lamar on my team in a while, and I know he's coming off. He's trying to push to get that team into the Super Bowl. Part of the reason why I didn't want to take Derrick Henry was because I wanted Lamar Jackson. But the way the draft was going, I'm just like, I got to get Jaden because Lamar's going to go for too much. And of course he didn't. Of course he went for less because of course. Yeah, that was I guess you could say a miscalculation, but like it's $3. I don't feel that bad about it. I feel more bad about the next one. So number 60 selection, $32, Marvin Harrison Jr. So only after the draft did I really like kind of this sink in, and I was kind of annoyed by it. So first I will say, seeing Brian get Brian Thomas Jr. at like 27 was just such a steal. He was worth roughly maybe double that, like around the Malik Neighbors kind of neighborhood. Malik Neighbors went for like 52. So if we want to be conservative and say like he was around like a $50 player, he still saved like $23 on that player. So I see Brian Thomas Jr. as like a back end number 1, so like the 9th rated fantasy wide receiver. Why is that important? Well, I will tell you why. Because at 60 overall, the 2 players that I kind of wanted around there were Jackson Smith and Jigba and Marvin Harrison Jr. And why I'm kind of annoyed is Those teams both happen to play for birds. What does that have to do with anything, Dylan? Well, Charlie decided to have a birds team. A pretty bad birds team, considering it has no Cardinals players on it. So we got in multiple bidding wars. And I was just like, what are we doing? Like, why are you bidding on these players? You have no running backs. You don't even know how to build a team properly. So I ended up paying $32 for Marvin Harrison Jr. The way I kind of like thought about is I wanted someone who I think there's upside with. I especially wanted, if not Jackson and Jigba, there were a lot of wide receivers last year in last year's draft. So like we're talking like Ricky Pearsall came out in the first round, and like Malik Neighbors came out in the first round, and Brian Robinson Jr. came out in the first round. And the way I kind of expected things to go was, like Brian Robinson Jr. is probably going to go for like 50, and Malik Neighbors is probably going to go for like 50. And I thought, just going off film in my mind, like Marvin Harrison Jr. was the best wide receiver in that class. I still believe that he was the best wide receiver prospect. The problem is, and I guess this is just me being forgetful, is Kyler Murray is terrible at throwing deep balls. He is just no good at it. Like, I remember the jump balls he would just toss up to DeAndre Hopkins, and he'd have to go get them. And you might be like, oh, DeAndre Hopkins is like a really good jump ball receiver. And like, yeah, he is, but the issue is he shouldn't be having to do that. You should be able to throw people open, and you should be able to see the coverage and be able to like, he's running ahead of that cornerback. I think he's open. And then throw the ball. Instead, it's constantly just like he's like covered around. He has to like jump up and go get it. And I had forgotten this. And that is basically what I watched last year with Marvin Harrison Jr., where he had like a 54% catch rate and 22% off-target rate on the throws to him, even though he ranked third in the league in end zone targets with 17. So it was just like really frustrating. And I kind of saw that on Ryan's team, and I've seen like all of the stuff going on basically this offseason, kind of like the same stuff with Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I was just like, I think they're figuring out the chemistry. I think I want him. The problem now is I need Kyler Murray to be able to actually get him the ball. There's risk in believing that. I think he's an elite player. I think he gets separation at an elite rate. I think he is got all of the talent that his father had, who is in the Hall of Fame, by the way, and played with Peyton Manning, and is an incredible player, whereas Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't even get 1,000 yards last year. So am I kind of annoyed that I spent $32 on Marvin Harrison Jr., who I think is worse than Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey, and both those guys went for more, and is probably around the same type of player that Terry McLaurin is, and went for half of that? Yes, I am kind of annoyed by that. This was my mistake. But I really want Harrison Jr. or Smith and Jigba just because I believe in their breakout. I think he'll be a 1,200-yard receiver. I think he'll get like 7 or 8 touchdowns. I think he's like a very solid wide receiver too, with the possibility of being a wide receiver 1. The problem is Brian Thomas Jr. is already a wide receiver 1. So I'm just like, ugh. I paid $5 more for a guy who's like, maybe if Brian Thomas Jr. is like the 9th best receiver, I got like Harrison Jr. at like 17. So yeah, not great. Did not enjoy. Do not recommend. Was unhappy with that. 2 slots later, $45 on James Cook. Now, I've mentioned multiple times, Bucky Irvin went for 46, Kyron Williams went for 44, James Cook went for 45. I feel the worst about it between the three. So why did I go for Cook? Well, he is a tricky evaluation because although he is the starter, he usually only gets 15 touches a game. His total yardage isn't usually all that much. Like, he barely, grazed past 1,000 yards last year. I think he had 1,009. He was carried by his 16 touchdowns. So obviously, as everyone has told me, as I am expecting, he had 16 touchdowns on the ground. He had 2 more receiving. So that's 18 touchdowns in 16 regular season games, not 17. We don't count the last one because he didn't play. So, especially considering he's only scored 9 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons, everyone's rightly expecting touchdown regression. I am also expecting touchdown regression. But the way I kind of saw it, the way the draft was going, I was kind of like, okay, I kind of got this wide receiver too I'm kind of stuck with. I don't really. I see a lot of deals at wide receiver that I feel comfortable with, and I'm going to kind of bounce back with that later. So I guess the pivot is I want to go get a running back too. I want to get a mid-range running back. I want to get someone that I like, that I think has a lot of talent, that I don't really have to worry about their schedule. I don't really have to worry about their injury history. They just roll up, they go, they are what they are. And I'm not really as concerned with even like a committee. So I went with James Cook. I mean, they just gave him a big extension, so that also kind of played into it. I'm just like, if you're going to pay this guy this much money, and he's going to be like such a key player on this offense, then you got to use him. Like, they're paying nobody at receiver. Like, I guess technically they brought in Joshua Palmer. He's not even good enough to be on any of our fantasy teams right now. So, like, Keon Coleman, I have no belief in. He didn't even have 30 receptions last year. Shakir is a nice player, but he's not in the elite slot receivers. We drafted Dalton Kincaid. We drafted Dawson Knox. Okay, they're tight ends. They're nice. They're not Brock Bowers or Sam Laporta. So what are we talking? The best offensive skill player outside of Josh Allen is James Cook. It's simply James Cook. And I think, if nothing else, talent is absolute. Talent rises to the top. I think he will have his best season. I think they'll try to use him more. I think he'll have 1,200 yards. I don't think he's going to get 18 touchdowns. I am not that foolish. But I do think he can get like 14 touchdowns. The issue is Allen just had an MVP season, and Allen loves to run the ball in the red zone. But I really do think they're going to try and give Cook more red zone touches. And if they do, then I'm not as worried about the touchdown regression. He did a lot of things last year. And he, for all of his faults that I mentioned before, I see it more, it's kind of like Bucky in the sense that he is very efficient. Like, Joe Mixon is not very efficient. He averages 3.4 yards a carry. Whereas James Cook averages 4.9 yards per carry. He's very, very efficient. And with that efficiency, I think they can use him more. I think they should use him more. I'm hoping they use him more. But I was late to the party, I guess you could say, because Cook went for 62. I think Sarah had taken, and what I meant by 62 is he was the 62nd nomination. I think Sarah had taken Bucky Irving way early at like number 8. And we'll check when Mackenzie had taken Kyron Williams with the 45th nomination. So I was trying to get a feel for it. Devon Achane went for like 54. I saw like, what is it? What's his name? Yeah. I saw like Chase Brown go for like 70. And I'm just like, okay, I kind of got a feel for like the running back market now. I think I know where I want to go with this. Because the only other running back on the wheel was Kenneth Walker the second. Who, yes, Kenneth Walker the third. And yes, Brian got a good deal on him for 18. But if I'm being completely honest, I think Zach Charbonnet is better than Kenneth Walker. You heard it here first. So I don't really want to deal with all of that. I don't want to deal with the injury history. I just want someone who I can trot out there, who I think is really good. My 2 stars are Genty and Daniels. I don't really like my wide receiver 2, who's my wide receiver 1, but here we are. So let's go get who we think could be elite, and let's get him. So that's what I do with James Cook. And once I did that, knowing that I spent most of my money, I was like, okay, now I know I got a budget on wide receivers. Now I know what I want to do. Here's how we're going to play it out. Because the way I kind of gamed it out this year, I didn't want to go 3 running backs, especially knowing we're going to point for first down. And I figured, after looking at the historic rates of our drafts, there are a lot of back-end wide receivers under $10 that you should get for cheap. Usually, Justin likes to go for all of the young receivers, and he really likes them, but he falls way too in love with them. to the point where he overinflates their markets. And some of those guys just are not worth it. I can probably get like post-hype young players who I like, who've shown something, and I can probably get them on the cheap. Just because they'll be kind of under the radar. And that played into my hands because that is exactly what I did. So, 95th nomination, $8, Jalen Waddle. So another post-hype sleeper. We're going into year 5. Last year, he only had 58 catches and not even 750 yards receiving. I think he saw his target share drop to 16% last year. He was like 52nd in fantasy points per game, and him and Tyreek Hill basically kind of fell off the wagon. I think that more has to do with Tua being hurt. Now, granted, Tua being hurt is not unheard of. Tua gets hurt, it seems like every season. I think Miami finally tried their best to address the offensive line, and Tua Tagovailoa has a shot at being healthy this whole season. It's a weird thing to say, but that's the only way Mike McDaniels is going to keep his job. And the way I kind of saw it is like, this will sound blasphemous. I thought Tyreek Hill kind of lost a step last year. The way I saw him, he just was out of sync. Things were not clicking. And when I watch Waddle, everything looks the same. He's still got to step on people. He still runs great routes. He's still getting open. Couldn't get him the ball. Could not get him the ball. So he was someone I was targeting even before the draft because I think might be a changing of the guard. I think Tyreek might be becoming the number 2 receiver and Waddle becoming the number 1. And if that's the case, I got him at super cheap. So I'm thinking 90 receptions. I'm thinking 1,100 yards. I'm thinking like 6 touchdowns. And that is basically like a wide receiver 2 territory. Yes, I know I just said Marvin Harrison Jr. is like a wide receiver 2. Yes, I paid $8 for Jalen Waddle. Yes, I paid $32 for Marvin Harrison Jr. And essentially I'm saying they're relatively close to each other. I know that is dumb, but I really like Waddle. I like Waddle a lot going into the season. I think Miami's going to just lean fully into having to be pass heavy and just kind of go for it. Will that work? I'm not completely sure. I think it will, but I'm not completely sure. So, Waddle it is. 106 nomination, $3. I know that Sarah nominated him. Funny enough, kind of like I will admit this, going into the draft, I actually wanted some injured players. Oh, that's such a breaking news. The players that I were looking at, well, not just injured players that are just kind of like misfits. So we'll put it this way. I had queued up Brandon Ayuk, Chris Godwin, Jordan Addison, Chris Olave, and Rashee Rice. All of them because for one odd reason or another, something was going on with them. Basically the way I kind of saw it is like, I want to leave the draft with 2 of them. And the reason being is because I think they're being severely undervalued. And the way they went in the draft, they are being severely undervalued. Addison went for 6. Ayuk went for like 2. Rashee Rice went for 5. And I got Olave and Godwin. I got Olave for 3. Now, we'll kind of jump into it. Were the concussions an issue last year? Yes. Yes, they were. Am I aware of that? Yes. Yes, I am. Was it a great time for him? No. No, it was not. All of that being said, first 2 years of his career, so we're going into year 4. The first 2 years of his career, Chris Olave was a top 25 wide receiver. And he was getting a target share of 27%. Last year, in the games he played, he was getting a target share of 24%. So he also produced 80-plus yards 4 times in the 6 games that he played last year. So he still looked the same. He was still doing his thing. It's just he gets a concussion, he gets a second concussion. He is gone for the season. And am I super confident that that's not going to happen again? No, I'm actually less confident in that happening than I am in Tua staying healthy, funny enough, just because McDaniels will probably have to put in tight ends to block and just keep Tua clean. I'm not as confident about the Saints. I mean, we are starting Spencer Rattler at quarterback because Derek Carr is retired after Drew Brees is retired, and we took Tyler Shuck in the second round, and he's about to turn 26, and he is not even our starting quarterback. So, yeah, I'm not super confident that Olave can stay healthy. But my thinking is this: if he can stay healthy, I am super confident in his ability to get open. And as I said before, talent rises above. I thought he was in the same draft as Garrett Wilson, and I still think he's the better receiver. I mean, that's kind of crazy to say, but he gets open more consistently. He runs more precise routes. He has a better feel for coverage. He's just in a strangely, a worse situation than the Jets are. I think Olave is fantastic when he's on the field. It's just a matter of can he stay on the field. If he does, awesome. I just got a $3 wide receiver 3. If he doesn't, that sucks. I'm sad. I'm sad for him as he could use a contract extension. But the other thing that goes along with the Saints being terrible, even if their quarterbacks are no good, this means there's going to be in a lot of shootouts. And I do love me some garbage time. So I'm going to say like 85 receptions. I'm going to say 1,100 yards. I'm going to say like 5 touchdowns. And that is a wide receiver 3 at a bargain basement price of $3. So, yeah, I was very pleased, funny enough, to get Olave, just like I was happy to get Waddle. They were players that I had queued up because I was relatively confident I could get them under $10, and I was right. So I felt very comfortable with taking James Cook and Genty and Daniels at this point. Not as comfortable as Marvin Harrison Jr., but, we'll get there. So 111 selection, Tyjae Spears, $2. Why did you take Tyjae? Tony Pollard is the guy. He's going to get huge workload with Stefan. Yes and no. So last year he was more of the backup, change of pace back, and he will miss the first 4 games of this year because of his high ankle sprain. And he obviously played second banana to Tony Pollard last year. So why would I be interested in him? He seems like more of a handcuff. Well, 2 reasons. Number one's kind of a fun one. So number one, as everyone knows, Sarah blew out her ACL. I thought it'd be kind of fun to just in my own way kind of support her by getting a running back who has no ACL. That's right. Tyjae Spears has no ACL in his left knee. That's why he fell in the draft. He was a 3rd-round pick, I want to say 3 years ago. He was probably an early 2nd-round talent, but everyone's just like, "Why is your knee? Where's your ACL? What do you mean you lost your ACL and then you never had ACL surgery and it healed? That doesn't. How do you play football?" So that is an anomaly that I just think that tickles me. But the other real reason that I want Tyjae Spears is because towards the end of last season, it was very strange. A very strange thing happened. Usually, people don't really pay attention towards the end of seasons just because, stuff happens. Things get kind of wonky. You're not really sure, what's going on with, some of the teams, and the depth charts get a little funky. Basically, he scored 4 touchdowns in 2 games, and he was essentially a superstar player towards the end of the season. Why is that important? Well, funny you ask. So that's kind of important because I also, with running backs, not as much with receivers, but with running backs, I kind of like to look at schedule. And I like to look specifically at late season schedule, just because I want to get a feel for when guys might be playing. An example of this might be this year. Part of the reason I didn't want Derrick Henry is because the Ravens play on Christmas. They play on the Saturday before, and then they're playing on like the Thursday Christmas game. So it's like a really quick turnaround in like weeks 15, 16. And I was just like, I don't know, depending on how their schedule breaks or like where they are in the standings, if they're going to want to play everyone around then. I looked at the Titans schedule, and they had like the 49ers, the Chiefs, and the Saints in weeks 14, 15, 16. And I kind of circled the last two, which is the Chiefs, which are coming right before that Ravens game and usually are resting starters getting ready for the playoffs, and specifically the Saints in that championship game. So kind of like last year, the Titans had a really soft December schedule. They have, again, really soft December schedule. And so I don't believe in Tony Pollard's ability to stay healthy. And this is just kind of like my ticket to being like, Tyjae Spears looked really good in December. I wonder if he can do that again. And so I took him for $2 because I want to find that out. I don't care what he does the rest of the season. He might give me 400 yards. He might give me 3 touchdowns. He might give me 200 yards receiving. It is simply a bet on the playoffs. Now, will I trade him at some point? Yeah, sure. If you give me like a starting running back, you offer like a wide receiver and I need something, yeah. Because I think Tyjae's a pretty good like change of pace back. He's a startable bottom end flex. But his worth to me is not anything he can do during the first 14 weeks of the season. I do not care. I specifically took him for the last 3 weeks of the season because I don't think Tony Pollard, for whatever reason, Tony Pollard seems to get nicked up towards the end of the seasons. Go look it up. And so each time that's happened, his backups have usually been really good. And I don't know if it's a pattern or coincidence, but I want to find out. And so that is why I had highlighted Tyjae before the draft. That is why he was a circled not must grab, but like circled like end under $5 running back highly desired. And I underlined that in my notes. And that's why when I saw him and I put the $2 bid, I'm like, oh, this is going to pay off. So, yeah, that's a really weird niche thing that I thought about. But it's something that I was just like, I want to end game this. Whereas kind of like, I want a wild card. I'm going to put a wild card in the deck. And I'm going to see if I can get that wild card. And I pull it. So I'm very, very happy to get Tyjae. He'll sit on my IR. He'll sit on my bench. I do not care. Because I just want to see if I can get him, if I can get to the playoffs, and if he's going to contribute in those playoffs. And that's all that matters to me. He is not a regular season player for me at all. 131 nomination. We got him for $1, and I was surprised. DJ Giddens. So, taking the 5th round this past year's draft, he is now the backup, funny enough. I think they put Khalil Herbert on their practice squad. So, he is the backup to Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis. I was surprised he won the job. But he had a 39.5 inch vertical. He had a 4.43 40-yard dash. He had a 130-inch broad jump. He was pretty efficient as a rusher at Kansas State. And while he's not a great pass catcher, he's always struggled with drops. The fact that the Colts trusted him enough to be the backup to Taylor, I felt very comfortable with. Now, I actually, full disclosure, was expecting Brian to like take some interest in him, and Brian did not take any interest in him. He did not bet not even a single dollar. Now, to be fair to him, yes, Jonathan Taylor is an incredible player, and yes, DJ Giddens probably isn't going to see the field all of that much. But the way I kind of saw it, kind of like Tony Pollard, Jonathan Taylor hasn't played a complete season in 3 years. So, will he miss those games? I do not know. But the way I kind of saw it, I think DJ Giddens is a pretty good player. I think DJ Giddens showed some talent at Kansas State. I think the Colts have a pretty not great quarterback room, so their team will more than likely be run heavy. And it doesn't hurt that their week 15, 16, well, in our case, 14, 15, 16 games are. Oh, actually, no. This would be 15, 16, 17 because it's not week 18. So 15, 16, 17. See, I'm getting confused now. Basically, late December. All right, we'll just say that. It gets easier. All right, is Seattle without Pete Carroll. 49ers. Okay, 49ers, decent. Championship game. Jaguars. So I kind of looked at that, and I was like, if I can get Jonathan Taylor as my RB2, that'd be cool. Could not get Jonathan Taylor as my RB2. He went for 67, so I'm just like, dang, that stinks. I'm going to wheel back around to that later. So I did, and that was DJ Giddens. And I was like, I can get him for $1, and I did, and I was surprised, and I like him a lot. He's 70% of Jonathan Taylor, and if, depending on when Taylor gets nicked up, Giddens will be in my starting lineup, and I will be happy for him. He's not as much a bet on the playoffs as Tyjae is. Tyjae's strictly like a playoff bet. Giddens is more just along the lines of, kind of like Jordan Mason last year, I just see something. And with Taylor's injury history, kind of like McCaffrey, which sneaky like kind of thing with McCaffrey, so people just, this is just his history. I just do history on running backs. That's another thing about running backs. Like, I don't know what it is, but like when I watch film, I love to watch running back film. It just really interests me. I think they're really interesting players, mostly because they're the most ready to go into the NFL. This was a very deep running back draft class, so I was very happy about it. But that's an aside. The point is, I think Taylor is an incredible player, but he's been really nicked up the last 3 years. He's always missed games, and if Giddens is actually the backup in a run-heavy offense, I'm really interested in that. I kind of felt the same way, again, with Jordan Mason last year, because Christian McCaffrey, in the 4 years that Christian McCaffrey has basically played the whole season, he's been a top 3 fantasy running back. But 3 of those years, he basically did not play half the season because he essentially blew out something in his knee. So, like, it's 50-50 with McCaffrey. That's why I drafted Jordan Mason last year. Just like, Jonathan Taylor is playing like 10, 11 games, or he plays like 14 games, he misses a few games. I should probably take his backup, because his backup is probably competent. And so I did the research, I looked at the draft. DJ Giddens, I like. I'm not saying he's Jordan Mason. I really like Jordan Mason. I talked about him a lot. But I think Giddens has some talent. The vision is nowhere near as good, but he has some talent. And frankly, the schedule's kind of soft, and I don't believe in the quarterbacks. That's another reason. I do not believe in Daniel Jones. Do not believe in Anthony Richardson. I don't watch as much game film on quarterbacks because it's like they either have it or they don't. I don't think either of them have it. Like, it just, I think they're running the ball. I think Brian should be very happy with Jonathan Taylor because he'll get the ball a lot. But I took Giddens essentially because I think at some point in the season, he can probably be a starter for me. And that, at this point in the draft, is very valuable to me. But kind of going along, I'm taking these like really cheap running backs. I'm like very happy with them, but I need to find a flex guy. Now, I guess this is kind of where I'm just like, nah, I probably shouldn't have done this. So I really liked Ashton Jeanty. I took Jeanty, and that was later in the draft. I'm like thinking to myself, it's like, there's another guy I really like. I think I can get him for cheap, but the problem is he's on Jeanty's team, and we should probably try to trade him later. I still haven't found a trade for him, to be completely honest. I'm kind of surprised by it, but then I'm not, because he's incredibly underrated. So that player is at the 135 nomination at $6. It's Jacoby Myers. So I think he is probably the most underrated receiver in fantasy, if not the NFL. A lot of people rate the Raiders as being like the worst receiving core in football, and I think that's kind of silly considering how good Myers has been. Like, yeah, okay, he was like the Robin to Devontae Adams the last couple of years, but he's also like 5 years in a row, so fantasy reasons, 5 years in a row, he's been a top 30 fantasy wide receiver. He's one of 10 receivers with 67 receptions, plus 67 receptions, and over 800 yards receiving in the past 4 years. And last year, he had a career high of targets, catches, yards, and end zone targets. He is basically, he had 1 year of Tom Brady, then he had the Mac Jones years. Then he was in Vegas, and he had the Jimmy Garoppolo experience, and then he had the Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew experience. And people are telling me, oh, he's going to be worse with Geno Smith. Like, Geno Smith is the best guy on that list outside of Tom Brady. And Myers basically got Tom Brady as Tom Brady was leaving New England, and he was there as a rookie. So he barely got to see the field with Tom Brady. And he's supposed to be worse? Why? Like, that don't make no sense. So, yeah, Brock Bowers is the receiving number one on the Raiders, which is also another reason why I'm just like, how can you say they have the worst receiving core? Did no one watch Brock Bowers break the rookie record for most, catches last year? Does no one pay attention to anything? But I also think Myers is going to, again, be a top 25 fantasy receiver because he's been a top 25 fantasy receiver the past 4 years. If you go to 5 years, he's been a top 30 receiver all 5 of those years, and he's in literally a better situation than he's been in all 5 of those years. I think he'll get his 1,000 yards. I think he'll get his 6 or 7 touchdowns. I think he'll be a viable wide receiver 3, and I think he was undervalued. For everything that I overpaid for Marvin Harrison, I underpaid for Jacoby Myers. I think Marvin Harrison probably was an $18 player. And I think Jacoby Myers was probably a $20 player. And I got him for $6. And I'm still kind of miffed that no one really is interested in trading for him. I guess, again, he's very underrated. People don't really care about all the things I can throw at them. And maybe they don't believe in Geno Smith. Maybe they don't believe in Pete Carroll. Maybe they don't believe in Chip Kelly. I don't really know. I just know Jacoby Myers, maybe they're scared off by the trade request. It's oh no, he might get traded. And I'm just none of these things matter to me. Jacoby Myers is going to show up. He's going to produce. People at the end of the season just how do you do that? And I'm going to be of course he did that. He does that every year. You just don't pay attention. Just we out here, ignoring Jerry Jeudy going for $8. And I'm just he was a top 15 receiver. Even if you want to say a lot of that is a credit to Jameis Winston, not all of it is. And he still has talent. So I think Jacoby Myers is fantastic. Chances are I'm probably just going to bite the bullet and start him because no one really seems to have any interest in him. I even offered him to Stefan for Tony Pollard, and Stefan wants to keep Tony Pollard, which I get because Pollard's definitely startable without Tyjae Spears. And I just mentioned the schedule. I just don't think Pollard's going to stay healthy. But Myers always stays healthy. He always produces. I don't know. I guess people just don't really like him. But I think he's terrific, and I was so happy to get him at that value. I thought that was a steal, and I knew that going into the draft he was probably going to be a steal, and I was right. He's literally not broken $10 our entire auction draft history, and every single year he has been a $20 player, and I'm just he's only 28. What are we doing? He's literally in his prime. So, yeah, that was just a funny little, put a little note on it, look at it later during the draft, yep, that came true, let's go get him. So, 165 nomination, $2, Cedric Tillman. Okay, so Tillman had under 30 receptions last year. He hadn't really shown anything until last year. To be fair, last year was the second year. He had a concussion week 12 that kind of just pushed him out. If we want to say that, kind of pushed him out for the season. But things kind of changed when Amari Cooper was traded, I want to say, after week 6. Essentially for that 6-week sample size, Tillman was a top 12 receiver in fantasy. Now, granted, a lot of that came with Jameis Winston, so again, caveats just like Jerry Jeudy. But even if I think that Joe Flacco is not going to rifle the ball like Jameis Winston did. And even if I think that Jerry Jeudy is the number one in Cleveland, I also think that Cleveland, despite taking Judkins, who still hasn't signed a contract, Dylan Sampson, who is like a fourth round pick and I think is all right, and Jerome Ford, who's a guy, I don't think they're running the ball. I think with 40-year-old Joe Flacco, they're probably going to lose some games, and then they're going to turn over to like Dylan Gabriel, Shador, and then they're just going to let him go loose. And I'm totally cool with that because that means a lot of garbage time. And just like Cedric Tillman was killing it in garbage time, Cedric Tillman can kill it in garbage time for me on my team. So I think he'll double the amount of receptions. I think he'll get like maybe 900 yards. I think he'll get 4 or 5 touchdowns. I think he's like a low-end flex with the possibility of being more. I wanted to get a kind of young receiver, but I was watching Justin just kind of like eat up everyone. So I'm just like, okay, we're going to get more post-hype sleeper guys who are after like their first or second year, and they've shown something that I've seen, and I think there could be more there. Just like with Olave, just like with Waddle, we did the same thing with Tillman. It's kind of like my one floor guy was Myers, and the other guys are all kind of like just upside bets. I just want to get more upside because, maybe Olave gets injured. Maybe Tillman gets injured. Maybe Waddle underperforms. I don't know. But I would bet you 2 out of the 3 don't happen. I think 1 of the 3 won't make their upside, but I think 2 of the 3 will. And that is perfectly fine with me. So that will get me where I want to go. Because I took another floor guy kind of just to save myself on the back end, and that was at 169, because I had mentioned before all of the guys that I was targeting who were kind of quasi-injured or missing games. And this one was $5, Chris Godwin. So, yeah, I was very happy to get Chris Godwin for $5. I know he's been 8 years in the league. I usually don't take Bucs players, but I've watched Godwin a lot. I was surprised to see him come to the Bucs and turn down I think he signed for $66 million, and the Patriots offered him $90. So he significantly turned down more money to stay in Tampa. So he definitely wanted to be here. And them signing him to that contract also told me that they are confident in his ability to return. Now, yeah, I understand they brought back Emeka Ibuka, but the dirty little secret is Mike Evans' contract kind of ends soon. Like next year soon. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that Ibuka was drafted not to replace Godwin, but to replace Evans. So, you kind of heard it here first. Anyway, Godwin had a season-ending ankle injury against the Eagles in Week 7 of last year. He, before that game, was averaging almost 20 fantasy points a game. He was overshadowing Evans and everyone else on the Bucs offense. He had scored 5 touchdowns in 7 games, and he is in the prime of his career at 28. He was Baker Mayfield's top target. And even if he's going to miss games, I know right now the Bucs did not put him on IR because they want him to practice with the team. My bet is he probably comes back around we'll say he got injured week 7, so around 6 or 7. So basically a year from the injury. He was on pace to lead the league in reception last year. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that again. But basically the bet is his chemistry with Mayfield is just immaculate. And as I mentioned before with some of those injured guys, so again, we're talking Olave, we're talking Brandon Ayuk, we're talking Jordan Addison, we're talking Rashee Rice, we're talking Chris Godwin. I wanted 2 of them. So I saw the other guys, I'm just like, all right, I think the guy with the most upside that we can roll the dice on is Godwin. I was expecting him to hide him on IR. I was also not expecting Spears to not be on IR. So it actually worked out. Spears is on my IR. Cool. Godwin might come back sooner. Lovely. So he'll be on my bench too, but I think he's probably going to start for me at some point. I don't know if he's going to lead the league in receptions, but I think at the end of the season he's going to have 800 yards, 70 receptions, 6 touchdowns. And if we're talking that's a little over 2/3 of the season, I'm going to take that all day. That is wide receiver one numbers. And yeah, this is kind of like my makeup for Marvin Harrison Jr. This is my wide receiver one who is sneakily on my bench for $5. I was surprised, but not totally surprised because again, people underrate injured players. They just don't want to wait on them. I was also like you. Someone might ask me, why didn't you take all of them? And my response would be, well, if I took Jordan Addison and Chris Godwin and Chris Olave and Rashee Rice and Jordan and I had them all on my team. The problem is I don't think I could get through like the first half of the season with all those injured players just based off the fact that someone else might get injured and I need to start somebody. You don't really want to like overload your bench with a bunch of guys going into the season that are nicked up because chances are they're probably going to get nicked up again. I don't know if Godwin's going to make it through the season, but I feel comfortable enough that I have enough depth to be able to navigate it whether or not he can contribute to me or not. I'm just shooting for the upside that he can be a wide receiver one. Am I counting on it? No. Do I think he can do it? Possibly. And I'm going to take that possibility for the cheap. So that's what I did. After that, 199 nomination, we took Ray Davis for $1. Strictly speaking, I think we're going into year two. I liked him as a fourth-round pick. I know he kind of splits duties with Ty Johnson, but basically he backs up James Cook. And I think he's still getting, he was getting 7 touches a game while Cook was getting 15 last year. So that's quite a lot for, a backup running back. And he's relatively effective. I don't think he's good enough to be a lead back, but I think he's good enough to be in a committee. And they're kind of already in committee. I wish he was in less of a committee. But the point is, I basically just took him as a handcuff to Cook because I think Cook can be a top 10-ish running back if things break right. I'm hoping Cook gets more volume, which is why I took him, but we shall see. But that's why I took Davis. He's not going to play unless something happens to Cook. Same type of deal, $220. Funny enough, Raheem Mostert, which is just one of the strangest guys basically in football. We are in 2025. Raheem Mostert is the backup running back to Ashton Jeanty. If you go back 2 years to 2023, he led the NFL in rushing touchdowns with 21 touchdowns. Life comes at you fast. Mostert's always been really fast. He only had 2 touchdowns last year, so it kind of just fell off. It was Achan's backfield in Miami, and then now he's with the Raiders. And I think of him more the same kind of way Frank Gore was put into Buffalo, and then he was in Indianapolis, and Jonathan Taylor learned under Frank Gore. I think that's what Jeanty is under Mostert. Mostert's going to teach him how to be a professional. He's going to teach him how to watch film. He's going to teach him how to show up, and Jeanty's going to be the man. But if anything should happen to Jeanty, I think Mostert has shown, especially recently, that he is more than able to be a starting running back in this league. I think, again, running back is the highest attrition of any position in the NFL. I think there's also a ton of talent at running back because there's such high attrition. Because usually the older running backs basically get pushed out because every year in the draft you can always find a cheap running back very, very easily. So I was very pleased to get Mostert. Again, he's my handcuff to Jeanty should anything happen. I know we had this discussion last year with Justin, and he was just I don't really like to take handcuffs. Again, the way I kind of see it is if I think the guy's a top 7 running back, you should get the handcuff, especially for the season, just to kind of bet on it. And I am a little bit going against that because I don't think James Cook is a top 7 running back. But the way my team is built, I figured I have enough upside. I'm better off just kind of betting on something happening to Cook early in the season than just kind of dealing with it. And if I need the space, I can always cut Davis later. I'm probably not going to cut Mostert just because I think Jeanty has number 1 RB upside. Even if he's not, I think he's a top 3 RB, as I mentioned before. So I'm going to need that. But we'll see about Davis and Cook. Cook, I think I would bet on him staying healthy the whole year. There is one more thing that I will mention, kind of like with my team. So, you know that I put Tajay Spears on IR. That is true. And I saw McKenzie drop Dylan Sampson, and I was interested in Dylan Sampson. And I think he will possibly be the starter in Cleveland until Judkins comes back. And I really liked him, but I could not bring myself to put in the waiver claim for for Sampson, strictly for this guy. So Dylan's deep dive into running backs. So this guy is Kyle Monange. Okay, he's out of Rutgers. He was taken the 7th round by the Bears. What does this have to do with anything, Dylan? So he's only 5'8". He has the shortest arms in the class. He ran a 4.6 40, so he's slow. And he can't jump very far, so he doesn't have a great jump cut. So his collegiate stats were kind of underwhelming, and he only had like 1.52 yards per contact. So luckily, playing for him, basically Rutgers wasn't very good at running the ball. So what is it about him that I would put onto my team? 2 reasons. One, I don't really trust DeAndre Swift to stay healthy. I kind of mentioned this before, by alluding to it. But once before, DeAndre Swift has been with Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson got rid of him. And Swift, while I like him, has kind of shown me what he is. I mean, he's a good receiving back. He's not great between the tackles. And while I think he'll have a quality season, I'm not totally certain that they will trust him to be exactly what they need him to be in Detroit. You'll also remember going back in time when Ben Johnson came on the scene and there was DeAndre Swift. There was Jamal Williams. I do not like Jamal Williams. I do not trust Jamal Williams. I will forever be salty that Jamal Williams was drafted ahead of and given more opportunity than Aaron Jones. Forever be salty. However, once upon a time, Jamal Williams led the NFL in rushing touchdowns. That was in Detroit. I have not forgotten that. Again, what does that have to do with Kyle Monange? Well, a lot of talk this offseason has been of Ben Johnson wanting to have a tandem. A lot of the talk has been trying to find someone who can be the thumper near the goal line. A lot of the talk has been how he isn't certain that DeAndre Swift can be a workhorse running back. Notice the language that I'm using. And funny enough, a lot of the talk has been about a 7th round rookie draft pick from Rutgers who has made his way up the depth charts. I didn't think going into training camp, Kyle Monange would make the team. He was the 6th running back on the depth chart. Usually I don't take a lot of stock in preseason. Like, I'll watch it mostly because of what I want to see. And that I tell people this because the same way I saw in Jordan Mason is the same way I saw in Aaron Jones, is the same way I saw in Alvin Kamara. You see guys who display traits in the preseason, even against like number 2s and 3s, and you're just like, that's something to take note of. And so the thing that stood out to me this preseason with a running back was this guy. And the thing that stood out was, I mean, he's like a bowling ball. But when he ran, every run that he had, he made the proper read. Every run that he had, he ran with like ferocity. He ran with toughness. And it took 2 or 3 guys to take him down. And Ben Johnson has talked a lot about wanting to have a tandem running back. And each week, having watched that first preseason game, Monange has moved up the depth chart. He went from 5 to 4 to 3. And by the way, these aren't like unknown people. So like he beat out like Ben Britton, who I like as a prospect. He beat out Travis Homer, who is now the RB3. And in the final preseason game, he did not play, and yet somehow, because of the practice, he passed Roschon Johnson. And I'm just like, Roschon Johnson actually has talent. Roschon Johnson, I think, I've thought for like some time has been a pretty good player. I don't know if he's good enough to start on a team, but I thought going into the training camp, Roschon Johnson was like a target of mine because I thought Ben Johnson would use him as the goal line guy. I thought he would be in the Jamal Williams role. And so coming out of the draft, I was just like, wait, Roschon isn't the goal line guy. And I want a running back. I always love my deep takes on like running backs that I watch, and I just get like, I just see it. I just see on the film, just like, that guy has something. That guy has it. He has, and the thing I look for most is contact balance and vision. His ability to not be taken down, kind of like almost like a ballerina, just have really strong legs and be able to absorb hits, and the vision to be able to make the proper reads behind the line of scrimmage makes me think that he will be successful in the league. And so, all of that's to say, my silly little free agency ad was Kyle Monange, because I think that at this point in time, he's probably going to get some touches in that Bears backfield, and he might even be the starter, which is a weird thing that if you told me going into the draft, I would not have believed you. I mean, his film in college is okay. It's not great, but that's because Rutgers is not very good. But this was a really deep running back draft. I thought he'd be like a 5th round pick. He went in the 7th. I get it. But I'm really happy for the kid. And I wanted Dylan Sampson, but I just felt like Monange is so unknown, but I want to kind of take the risk. It's the same kind of thing. Like, sometimes I am wrong. I will guess wrong. I am not perfect. But, I feel like I'm more right about some of the things I see than I am wrong. It's the same thing, with Puka Nacua in the preseason a couple years ago. Like, I just picked him up. I'm just like, he gets open all the time. And I know they're backups, but, like, I can't, like, there's no way if Cooper Kupp is hurt that this guy isn't playing. And then, lo and behold, in the first game, he has, like, 110 receiving yards. I'm like, I knew it. So I think Monange is going to be the number 2 in Chicago. I think he's going to be in the Jamal Williams role. I don't know how good Chicago is going to be. But if that offensive line is even plays to average of what their talent should be, they should be an average offensive line. And that should be more than good enough to be able to run the ball. And so I'm hoping kind of like for a breakout, and maybe he'll be in that Jamal Williams, Ben Johnson role. I could be wrong. I will say his measurables are not great. I will say his college tape is not great. I will say I could be reading too much into the training camp, but I just watch his tape, and I'm just like, dang, that dude has desire. He has toughness. He's hard to take down. He's got good vision, and it seems like Ben Johnson trusts him, and that is a hard dude to earn the trust of. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the longest one. I hope it has informed you on what it is I look for. If you would like me to talk about what I see in film or anything of that nature, I'd be happy to. I probably will bore you to death with it, but I just think it's just like, I love to watch film. And I especially, like, a lot of people like to watch receivers, they like to watch offensive linemen, they like to watch, obviously, the quarterbacks, but I love to watch running backs because I just think, the simplicity of it, because, like, you can take kids who I think are in high school are good enough to be in the NFL right now, but also because, like, the nuance to it with being able to, like, not just have the talent to hit the hole, but you have to have the vision to see the hole. And it's just something compelling that I've always been interested in. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. This is why I'm the number 6 team. I think I have the upside to possibly push for a title, but I don't feel as great about it because I'm just like, man, I could have had Brian Thomas Jr. on my team, and instead I got Marvin Harrison Jr., and I got James Cook, and I'm really hoping the touchdown regression doesn't hurt me. It's not great. I'm not in love with those two things, but you make do with what you got, and I feel pretty good about the rest of my team. And I'm really, really pleased with the wide receiver depth I got. I'm even more pleased with the RBs that I got. I'm ecstatic about my RB room. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it.